Hi everyone, I'm Vanessa Nova.
And I'm Vila Loukas. Welcome to another episode of the Cosmic Conduit podcast. So excited to be here. Vanessa, we've got a really great topic again today. We're going to be diving into the world of Scorpio.
Diving is right. We're gonna go into the depths, right? Into the depths of the darkness, right? So we just
I
have
mean,
Samhain.
we can't help it if we're talking about Scorpio, right? That's what it is. It's this underworld, this underbelly, this underworld, this into the subconscious regions of the realm of consciousness. I mean, that's what we do in Scorpio.
It's getting darker earlier. I know here in Hawaii, we don't have a time change like you do there in Colorado, but it's getting darker earlier. The days are short, and it just feels like that, darkness is encroaching in and like the fall is coming in. Even though it's still like 80 degrees here, I definitely feel the season shift.
Absolutely. So yeah, so many great themes here that we're gonna dive into with Scorpio. So just to kind of refresh, in case anybody is new here, if you are new here, welcome. We're so excited to have you as a part of our Cosmic Conduit family. So what are we doing? We're talking about archetypal magic, and we're using the wheel of the zodiac as a framework to understand not just what archetypal magic is and how to use it. We're definitely diving into that, but also really focused on this new paradigm energy that is present on the planet. So it's been around now. We're like a year and some in, close to 2 years actually, of where this new paradigm energy has really begun to anchor itself. And so, what is the new paradigm, Vanessa? What are we even talking about here?
Well, you said 2 years. Like, what can you elaborate a little bit on like what that date was, or what kind of when there was a astrological shift of energy?
Yeah, so the new paradigm has been coming for a while. So when we say new paradigm, what we're talking about is this new way of living life on planet Earth. And so the old is falling away. So the old paradigm represents, just how things have been for a long time. And then with this awakening that's happening, a lot of people talk about it as this shift in consciousness. A lot of people talk about it um, as like a quantum leap for humanity, and oftentimes we're understanding it in the world of spirituality as a way to take our place more really in the cosmos, in the universe, and the galactic referencing of where we really come from. So yeah, so it's been on its way for a while. And about 2 years ago, in September of 2021, there were some specific, planetary alignments and cosmic shifts that allowed the energy to be less theoretical and like, ooh, philosophically it's coming, to like, boom, it's happening. So
Right.
yeah, that's the
Right. So,
reference
and
point.
then, in 2020, we had the beginning of the pandemic. And so that kind of like just shook up a lot of things. And then, that anchor that happened in 2021, you're like you said, it's just like the energy just started pouring down into the planet. And then, like we've talked a lot about this concept of, new paradigmitis, where, where the new energy is coming. We're being called to live in a different kind of alignment with all of these different levels of ourselves. So like to be more alignment with who we are as divine beings, to start weaving from a place of unity and purpose and compassion. And then in that process, we've just seen on the planet just like chaos, right? There's war, there's like, all these fluctuations in the economy, there's just so much what feels like chaos and upheaval. And we're not astrologers in general, but there's a lot of, if you look into the astrology, like this time on the planet is time of like great transformation and a calling to a different level of consciousness and a different way of being. So here at the Cosmic Conduit, that has been our ongoing conversation, like Vila said, working with the magic of the archetypes of the zodiac to align ourselves and to attune ourselves to a new way of being. Because the zodiac archetypes are who we are. regardless of our astrology chart, each month the sun comes into a certain sign, the moon is going to come into a certain sign at a point, and we have the opportunity to work with both of those archetypes as reflections for our own being, our own growth, transformation, and ultimately just to know ourselves more. And so this month we're looking at Scorpio, we're looking at, like, okay, where do we sit with our, with our own life? Like, how are we sitting with who we are, and how does that align with all of these different areas of our lives, our physical, our emotional, our spiritual, our career. And with each archetype, we have an opportunity to look at a very specific aspect of our being.
Yes. So what's so cool in the world of Scorpio, in just in this conversation about new paradigm, one of the things that the new paradigm energy has been relentless about, which is a lot harder than we might have expected, is this world of authenticity and transparency, where you cannot, like, the masks don't work, right? And we talk a lot about masks, and in the Cosmic Conduit conversation, in our podcast series. And what we have with Scorpio is an opportunity to really, really, really do the transformational work. So Scorpio is a very transformative sign. And we need that. We need that energy to really break through where the masking happens, right? Where we try to present in a way that's inauthentic. It's just not working. It's like those game shows from the our growing up era, Vanessa, where you'd get the what was that? Was it Family Feud, the one with the big X's that would come out on top?
Yeah, that was Family Feud.
Mm-hmm. That's
right.
what it feels like, right? When we try to go out there in the world and pretend to be something we're not. And it used to work. That used to work. It used to be we could kind of gloss over things. We could sort of sugarcoat a little bit. We could sort of make it we'll just make it good. We'll play nice. We'll do all these things that are going to keep kind of some of the themes we talked about with Libra, keep from rocking the boat, keep the status quo, just, smooth sailing. Let's just do that. And you get to Scorpio and it's not going to happen. And that's really how the new paradigm energy is working too. It's it does not cut it anymore. That kind of stuff is coming back to bite us in the back, to undermine what we're trying to make happen. And we are sort of being forced to come from a place of greater authenticity and greater honesty, self-honesty, kind of radical truthfulness, with who we are and what we're really about. What's really in the communication we're putting out to somebody, what's really in the desire that we have to spend time with somebody, all of these little tiny things that it used to be oh, we don't have to bring, true authenticity to the little things, just, in the big things. It's okay. That, used to be kind of the mentality. Now it's meh, because all the little things are what make up the big stuff. So we have to start bringing that authenticity in. And Scorpio actually is a tremendous ally in doing that, wouldn't you say?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think when we start to dive into the Scorpio energy, the truth is the Scorpio is a powerhouse.
Yeah.
And Scorpio really does get such a bad reputation, and it's really it's an uncomfortable place.
Yeah.
Because when we're talking about authenticity, when you don't want to look at the deep, dark parts of yourself and you don't want to work through them, it's really uncomfortable. It's really painful. And it's really, that's where we get ourselves into trouble. And so even along with this conversation of, the new paradigm and the energy coming in, it's we can't just go through the motions anymore. We can't just get away with not being in 100% alignment. And that, and all of the themes that we've come to in this journey on this wheel are about, what does it look like to live in the highest frequency or highest expression of each sign? And how can we take the gem of what that is and live it in our lives while working to overcome the lower self, working to overcome the negative ego aspect of each sign, because like all of those things we can relate to, all of those, negative aspects we've done in some way, regardless of our chart. So, with Scorpio, it's like we see, I just did a Google search about Scorpio because, I mean, my understanding of Scorpio is that, there is a lot of sticky stuff. There's a lot of painful stuff. I was saying, in our conversation the other day that it's a very dangerous, volatile, and, can be harmful sign. And that comes from the power that's behind it, because it's a powerhouse. But when we're not willing to do the work and look at the deeper aspects that need work, that's when it becomes damaging.
Yep.
And it becomes uncomfortable.
So let's dial this back a little bit and let's just kind of cover some basics here. So what do we know about Scorpio? So it's a water sign. And it's a fixed water sign, which is kind of intriguing. So fixed energy means it kind of gets going with how it is, and it just wants to like boom, boom, boom. This is what we do, which is interesting in a water sign, because water signs, water is the most, fluid of the, and really changeable. When you think about, water can come in all these different forms. Water has so much, movement and fluidity embedded in it. So to have a fixed water sign, it's almost a dichotomy, right? Where it's almost like two energies that are almost opposing one another, which tends to be a bit of how Scorpio works. It's a little bit contrary. It's a little bit contradictory in some of its features, even in the ways that, I think you said it before, that it almost feels like a fire sign because of this, the fierceness that it has in it, or the, that the sting of that tail, or the, there's a fierceness that comes with Scorpio energy that's not really at all like its other water sign counterparts. So yes, at this time of the year, we're connected into the darkest time of the year. After Scorpio, we have Sagittarius, which is going to take us into the winter solstice and coming into the turn of the wheel into the light again. So Scorpio and Sag kind of are governing this time of like, the deepest, darkest in the Northern Hemisphere, where the days are getting shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter leading up to Yule. So it's a time of a lot of like going deep, trying to understand what's in that underbelly. What are the pieces that need transformation? It's very alchemical. There's a lot of alchemy that happens here in this kind of sign of Scorpio. So what did I miss, Vanessa? What else about Scorpio?
It's water sign. What planets?
So planets we have here, we have Mars is one of the planets for Scorpio, and then also Pluto. Pluto is the ruler of the underworld, right? So Pluto is literally the god of the underworld. And so we have, so in that, the fierceness energy that's worked with the Mars planetary reference to Scorpio, and then Pluto really being that lord of the underworld, where it's like, if you're going to do anything here, you're, with that transformational aspect that it's going to come through that energy of, Pluto and Scorpio. And then here, you might see on my altar behind me, the tarot card. What do we got here, Vanessa?
It's when stuff needs to die. So, I mean, that's the whole alchemical process, is that you take the raw material of what it is that you need to let go of and what it is that needs to die, and you use that to really elevate yourself, to use it as a fuel or a compost, to grow into the next higher version of yourself. And Scorpio really is all about that alchemy. Like, you have the scorpion, which has its stinging tail, and like in its lowest frequency can be like, vindictive or manipulative, or, really like can cause harm.
Yeah.
To oneself or to other people. But when you go through that alchemy, then there's other symbols for Scorpio, right? Beyond the Scorpion.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I love about like this tarot card, so the tarot card of death, it's the number 13. So it's kind of all these things that we're afraid of, right? So we're afraid of death, afraid of the dark, afraid of, you know, really what it is that transformational process, the dark night of the soul. And what I love about this card is that there's tremendous hope here, right? So when you look at the colors, this card, you know, yeah, there's some scary imagery in the sense of things that were like, oh dear, you know, here's decapitated heads and a big, you know, a big scythe. And the skeleton, but the skeleton actually, you know, he's got a big smile on his face. You know, that he's here to bring something good,
right,
to bring about something positive, which
right,
is this rebirth process. And so there's
right,
there's like a seeding of energy that comes in here with Scorpio, where it's like we have to, and even with the change of the seasons, you know, it's like this is what we're doing at this time of year of the last harvest, is we're putting to bed the growth. Like it's the growth, the time of the growth and the fruit is over. We're harvesting the fruit and allowing those plants to die and to go back into the earth in order to be reseeded, to come up and grow again as the cycle of rebirth continues. So it is a challenging energy. You know, it's not easy. We don't go to Scorpio to like kick back and have a good time, right? You know, go like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go chill out and rest in some Scorpio energy. No, you go to Scorpio for that deeper journey, for that that transformational process, and to really do the true work of transformation and alchemy.
Well, yeah, which is, you know, the Scorpio has to die in order to become the eagle.
Yes.
So that's the symbols I was talking about. So like we tend to be afraid of death. We tend to be afraid of like letting things go. But that's what Scorpio is asking us to do on the higher level, is like, okay, like what actually needs to die? And like for me, even like this Samhain and this past lunar eclipse and the shift into the season of Scorpio, like I definitely felt like, you know, I died. You know, and like I'm in that phase of, okay, you know, death and rebirth again, because with the moon we have that opportunity every month to experience death and rebirth, but this one was particularly more powerful. And so because I've been doing this work so long, you know, I embrace that, and I know that's what's happening, but that doesn't make it any less uncomfortable, really.
Right. And that's the thing about comfort zone versus not comfort zone, which we'll talk more about as we get into the dynamic between Taurus and Scorpio, which are the counterpart signs on the wheel. You know, that wherever you're at is going to be your new level of comfort, that then when you go to out of your comfort zone, so that's going to be the same level of discomfort that you're going to have, right? So even if you're like, you've progressed, you've made changes in your life, you've come to new levels of expression for yourself, then that still becomes your new comfort zone. So then it's like when it's time to shift and move and change and transform and progress, you have to become uncomfortable again.
Right.
So let's talk about a little bit more specifically. We've referenced some of the shadows of Scorpio, but let's go there a little more fully. So just some on the positive side. So we have, you know, Scorpios, people with Scorpio energy tend to have a lot of loyalty, right? Is one of their, you know, positive qualities. There's, you know, Scorpios, because of that fixed sign, right? Is like, you know, they get connected to something that's true for them. And it's like, boom, they're like, they're with it. Kind of relentless in that way, like really connected to what's important for them. And so if in relationships, you know, you can have Scorpios that have a lot of loyalty that they're bringing, whether it's to a project or a team or a specific relationship. You know, a lot of creativity. There's a lot of creativity in this, you know, Scorpio as a water sign, and capacity for and perception. You know, so capacity to understand what's really going on and perception of what isn't, what's not being said, right? What's underneath the layers. That's it's hard to kind of pull things over on a Scorpio, right? They're gonna know.
Right.
And Yeah. So then on the flip side of it, on the shadow side, where those qualities can get a little bit challenging, at the human level, what do we have there? You want to kick us off on
Well,
that?
okay, so I think for here it's easier to see how the positives can like directly turn into shadows. So,
Yeah.
in this sign, I don't know. Yeah, it seems to me pretty easy to see that. So like when you look at the loyalty or the protectiveness as positive, like when that becomes out of balance, that becomes like obsessive and it becomes controlling. So if you have like on one hand loyalty and like I'm protective, I'm loyal, but then yeah, it can go too far.
Right.
And then the same thing, what was the other one that you said for a positive?
Um,
We said loyalty, we said
yeah, that relentlessness, that intensity. There's a lot of intensity in Scorpio.
right. So yeah, I mean that can be put towards like a positive spin of like putting it behind something for passion, for
Right.
motivation, and for dedication that turns into something long term, or it can turn into something obsessive. It's
Right.
and I think with all of these signs, like when any of these qualities is misdirected, then
Right.
that's where the shadows come in. That's where the
Right.
attachment comes in. So, an attachment or like addiction is another, shadow side thing of Scorpio as well. So,
Yeah, and I think that comes in with that fixed nature, right, of Scorpio,
mhm,
where it's just like this at all costs, right? And so that kind of it can turn into more of an obsessive, kind of fixated on it must be this, and with that, that kind of fixed, tendency is then that tendency to become, you said attached, but then also to like hold on to things
grudgy,
longer than needed. Exactly.
grudgy.
Holding
Hmm.
grudges, right? And with that, there can be, at a really intense level of the shadow, there can be that vindictive side. That can be the like gotta get
Vengeful.
back or get even, like because there's sort of a, keeping score. I think there's a tendency of Scorpio to like keep score. Well, somebody did this to me, well, then I got to do this to them. We got to like, eye for an eye sort of energy.
Right. And the other one that you just said was being perceptive or empathic or being able to like see all the layers of what's there, which is totally a positive quality. But then on the other side of that, when it's coming from a lower place, that becomes like, sort of manipulative, like working towards meeting selfish ends by manipulating people's weaknesses and things like that. So,
That's true. Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
So, never fear. We have a we have a solution on hand. Cosmic Conduit to the rescue. So then that's the whole point of what we're doing in this conversation is then talking about how can we more intentionally focus this energy towards a positive expression. So the way you said it a number of times, which I love, is like, if we were in our higher self, in our divine expression, all, 24/7, 100% of the time, what would this energy of Scorpio look like in the new paradigm? And that's where we have our new paradigm anchor of, you want to say
Dun,
it
dun,
for
dun,
us?
dun. It's purposeful devotion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So love those words together. So purposeful, that referring to that Scorpio way of like, gotta like really connect into something, meaningful, right? Scorpios are like, there's always meaning to things, which is true.
Yes.
It's an
Depth.
important piece of the alchemical journey, right? You don't do
Hmm.
alchemy for no reason. You're not like, oh, la, la, la,
Yeah.
la, here's some alchemy, it's driven by a purpose. And so that purposeful, and that also relates to that really spiritual side of Scorpio, which we haven't talked about yet. Scorpio is one of the most mystical and spiritual signs of the entire zodiacal wheel. And so that purposeful side of Scorpio, that's like connecting into something really deep and meaningful. And then the devotional side of it, the purposeful devotion, being devoted, having a place to channel that loyalty and that, that kind of tendency to fixate, right? In a devotional way, in a way that's about bringing love and connection and flow to uplift, instead of where there could be this Scorpio tendency to like lash out or, drag down into the depths. With, where that obsessive side of Scorpio can come in, but rather uplift from a devotional perspective of like, how can I take whatever is this object that I'm wanting to bring forward into the world as part of my spiritual gifts, and offer it in a devotional way to the greater good.
Right. I mean, I think that, bringing it back to the beginning of this conversation, talking about the new paradigm and the energy that we're being called to be aligned with, this archetype and this aspect of purposeful devotion is so important and so needed, because there is a lot of like emotional immaturity that happens in the world. And, I think as a whole, our level of emotional intelligence as a society, as a humanity on the planet, needs some growing up. So there's definitely an opportunity there to do that emotional deep work, to clear all of that, to let that part of ourselves die. And underneath that, deep in there, is more clarity about what each one of us have as purpose. And so, purpose isn't a fixed thing. There's like an essence to it. We each have, multiple aspects of our purpose. But as we do that deeper emotional work and clear some of the things that are blinding us from our truth, then we have that opportunity to move forward with that devotion, with the power, with the passion that's like can skyrocket us into the new paradigm. And I truly believe, as we've been having this conversation for the last like 20 years about what the new paradigm is and what it's going to look like, we don't know. We're building it as we go, step by step into the unknown, right? But I do know that for me, in my heart, when I feel into it, like one of the core aspects and keys of it is all of us living in alignment with who we really are and our purpose and what we're here to do. That's something that I strive for. And then also like, going through alchemical processes myself, it's like, okay, like what's the next piece and what is the next level of that? And when I have that clarity, then I can really like sink my teeth into it. But, we're having that opportunity here with Scorpio to uncover within the depths of ourselves that next layer or that clarity of what our purpose really is, and to be called to be devoted to that.
Yeah. And, one thing I'd love to just highlight here for a second is, when we worked with these new paradigm anchors, how to really dial in this frequency, we got to do a lot of wordsmithing, which is very fun. So, we're working here with purposeful devotion, and it's interesting to consider what's the difference between purposeful devotion and if we had like devotional purpose, if we like swapped those. And what I love is that the noun is the devotion. And I think that's such an important, kind of key in working this Scorpio energy, because it's so easy for us as humans to really attach to things that we think, to attach to concepts, even concepts around our own purpose. And I've even had, a whole journey with that for myself, and, a lot about, this story for me, but like where I thought I knew what my purpose was. It's like, okay, here it is. I got it. And I'm going to like grab onto that and say, here's my purpose. I'm going to go for it. And then, for a number of different reasons, that vision or that, way, that pathway sort of fell apart for me. And it was really devastating for my sense of self and like my whole spiritual like understanding of everything, because it was like I was so attached to what I thought the purpose was, versus having my focus on the devotion, being purposeful in my devotion to the great work, my devotion to serving the greater good, to being an instrument. So being devoted to myself as a cosmic conduit, right? As a conduit for that higher frequency light coming through, regardless of how what the form is. And so not being attached to the form of it or the concept of it or the structure of it, and just really being, connected in and loyal to the devotional side of devoting myself to the work and to the journey of transforming. So like maybe that path was important, or that aspect of the path was important in that particular phase of my spiritual journey. And then it served its purpose. And it was time to like go through a death and rebirth. And I did that, right? Needed a lot of Scorpio energy going on there. And so to like come back around and allow myself to be reborn, which when, if we've got that shadow side of Scorpio happening, where that attachment will keep us from doing the work. We're too attached to what we thought it was, or what the concept is, or what the other form has been. And so we try to stop the work by holding on. And that's really the antithesis of this purposeful devotion, is that if we focus on, the work of, or the process of the transformational journey, and trust that, right? And there is a surrender side to the death and rebirth. You have to like allow it to come through. And if we don't allow that cycling, then the new growth can't come, right? The rebirth process can't happen. And so that's another, big lesson here with any of the water signs, is a lot of the letting go and allowing and the surrendering. But definitely here is a huge piece of the alchemical process in Scorpio.
Right. And then you have to go through in that process. I mean, something I can definitely relate to as well. You had to go through that death. And it was not really, it wasn't really something that you could control,
right.
And also, so, you have to surrender.
Right.
And not just, and sometimes sometimes it just doesn't, it's not like something that you planned. It just comes out of nowhere. Just like death can, it's not something that you sometimes are prepared for. So, and that does take a process of grieving and letting go. And it's not comfortable.
And I think that control piece, I love that you added that in here, because I think that's a huge, again, where Scorpio can get a little bit distorted or contorted, right? Is wanting to try to control, or like you were talking before about the shadow side, can be manipulative, really trying to like be the one steering. And there's this interesting, juxtaposition that goes on here, where it's like, yes, we have to be so dedicated, and that fierceness of loyalty and dedication that Scorpio brings to the work to bring it through, but without trying to control it. Because if we try to control it, is when we distort the whole process. And so it's a challenging space to be. And as humans, we're really not very good at it. So again, I love this term, purposeful devotion, as a way to speak to, where to focus, like focus on, yes, there's a purpose behind it, and I'm devoted to that higher expression of what I'm here to bring, and the willingness to do the work, to do the transformation, to do the purification, because ultimately that's what the death rebirth alchemy is about, is purification, to bring to a higher frequency what I'm here to give.
Absolutely. So we really do have an opportunity here in this sign and with this archetype to have deep and powerful alchemy, and to raise ourselves to the next frequency, to the next level. But it does take, stirring around the muck and being willing to do the emotional work, the letting go work, but, just unattaching ourselves from certain things. That's not easy. It's not fun, but it definitely, has this greater reward. And so, we can steer that energy that can get out of whack or like get damaging, and put it into a powerful expression of purpose and, for the greater good, rather than, because it has this opportunity to either harm or ultimately like heal.
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna continue this conversation as we go into talking about Taurus and Scorpio axis. In the meantime, we'd love to have you join our community. So Cosmic Conduit, we have a whole online community where we're focused on supporting one another with this work, because the more of us that can bring this kind of work to the forefront of our consciousness, of our reality, of how we're living day to day, the easier time we're going to have really anchoring this new paradigm for ourselves and for the world, which is really what we're all about right now. So please join our community, follow us online. You can subscribe via YouTube or Spotify to this podcast series. But then also, click the link here. You can join us live. So Vanessa, do you want to talk about our live experiences?
Yes. So every month we are holding this space for you to connect with this energy yourself. And we guide you through some simple process to work with this and anchor the new energy in your own life. And so far, the spaces that we've been holding, the events we've been having, have been really powerful and beautiful. We love holding that space for you. So we would love to have you join us. And, like Vila said, follow us, because as we're moving into the next phase of the wheel, energies are getting heightened. So it's really the time to get in tune.
So we'd love to have you join us. Click the buttons, follow the links, subscribe, join us online live, and we will see you again soon.